Hi, Johan. I think we met the first time at Java One party. It was either the Sun time, it was like the concert with Sting, or before that. But we always met at the crazy called, how is it, party or appreciation event, whatever it was, like Alcatraz, minus degrees. For me, it was a really painful experience, but it's supposed to be fun, right?
Yes, I do remember that we saw Sting about 10 times, but I think 8 times it wasn't Sting, it was someone else.
Yeah, someone else, exactly. And you remember why we met? Because there were like 30,000 people and we stick together for unknown reason. So I cannot remember what was actually what is actually the reason. So why we stick together? Lots of fun and we had lots of jokes going on, but why we met each other?
Well, I was thinking about it. I think our first conversation dates from Java 1 1987 or something around that. And you gave a presentation about about the things that you still do, and I liked that presentation. So then I decided, why don't I become a groupie? And I became your biggest fan by then, just by repeating what you said. And actually. Kidding aside, at conferences people typically talk about complex stuff, and I do remember that your talk was about how to make complex stuff much simpler and cut the crap, and that's what I think we had in common. And Sting as well, he likes to cut the crap as well.
Oh, okay. So I didn't knew this. So you saw my talk about probably, Hello World with one-liner and not 20. So what I usually do. And then you approached me and we had a chat about that at the appreciation event, right?
Yes, that's how it must have gone, I think.
Oh, very cool. And then what I find out, that you are actually what we had another connection, but you don't know about that. I think Java 1 2000 was my very first Java 1. And as I remember, we got stickers with Linux Blackdown. And this was your fault, right? So you actually ported the JVM from somewhere to Linux. Is it true?
Yeah, well, so that's how I got started with Java, and I think that was in 1996 when I did my PhD, and I needed a programming language to do scientific stuff, physical computations and visualization. And as a PhD student, you don't necessarily go with what is hot at the moment. You want to go with what will be cool in a few years. So because there was a new language, Java, I said, well, okay, let's use Java. But also, I didn't want to use a Windows workstation. I had a Spark workstation, but I didn't want to use Sun OS. So there was Linux for Spark very recently. But the combination of Java and Linux and Spark wasn't available yet. And in general, Java on Linux wasn't available. So with a team called the Blackdown team, we ported Java to Linux, because in those days Sun said there is no market for Java on Linux. Who wants to use Java on Linux? We can't see anyone using it. And so that's what we did with this fine Blackdown team. And then gradually the market of Java on Linux was increasing, and at a given moment Sun assigned its own engineers to it, and then they invited us at Java 1, and they gave us an award, some t-shirts, and a big round of applause. And from that moment they took over.
Ah, okay. Because I remember in the year 2000, the marketing materials were from Sun. There was Blackdown mentioned in Java Linux, and there was like lots of stickers. I think I even have them. And I was actually delighted, like, oh, great stuff Sun is doing. And this was actually you with your team. How big was the team?
I think about 12 people were involved. Some of them working on the Intel port, others on the PowerPC, on the Spark port. So it was a pretty small team where some people came and go. But most of the work were done by a few, very few people. And then when first Sun added an engineer for dealing with us, it was Steve Byrne, and then Kelvin Austin, who later got famous because he did a 1.4 release, I think, was dedicated by Sun to more or less join the Blackdown team. And well, they've always been fair to us. On the other hand, yeah, maybe that's a missed opportunity because we did lots of work and in an area that nobody believed in that would become relevant. And if you look now, I think most of the servers running Java or running on Linux. But all in all, we were happy that our work was used and was taken over by some.
Yeah, you wrote actually history right now. I mean, Java on Linux is the thing. I mean,
yes, it did. Well, I still feel sometimes I feel a bit sorry about it because we didn't benefit at all from it, apart from the fact that now everyone is using it. But yeah, those team members, I sometimes miss them. I think I'm the only one who is still very active in the Java and especially the Java on the porting Java to mobile and embedded devices and so world. So if I still think that the Blackdown team was really a dream team, and it could be very handy to keep that team alive and port Java to other areas where companies might not be interested in immediately, but might become interested in it later. The same story as we did with Java on Linux.
Why the Blackdown name?
That is actually a funny question, and I have to admit that I learned the answer only recently. Blackdown, the domain name and the administration was done by Carl Asha, and he Blackdown was the I think the name of something personal to him, a street or a former girlfriend or so. Okay. But I didn't know where it came from, and nobody actually asked me until I met with the Xamarin CEO Ned Freeman a couple of years ago, and he used to be a friend of Carl Asha, so he explained where the name Blackdown came from. So it was interesting that someone who is currently at Microsoft had to explain me where a Java Linux name came from.
Yeah, sure. So no, the new Microsoft is the old Sun. So it's like, at least my impression right now.
It seems to be going in that direction. Yes.
Mm-hmm. So we are about 10 years away before Oracle buys Microsoft, right?
Or the other way around.
Yeah. What I thought is Black Hawk Down, you know. So the origin name I thought was something with the Black Hawk, you know, like the chopper, and down because I don't know, it's like something like this. Interesting. About dream teams, I think it is really hard to maintain a dream team. This is impossible. What usually happens, a small dedicated team of engineers achieve the impossible. And then, you know, a management kicks in, and either the team grows and everything goes south, or the people just grow and leave the team. So I don't think it will be even possible to maintain your team.
Yeah, I think that. Yeah, you're right. That's what you what happens often. I guess I'm just a too nostalgic person to be happy with that. I still hope that one day Bill Joy will come back to Java and start working on Ginny, for example. But
yeah. Bill Joy, I think he's building islands or something like this. So self-sustaining islands. This was a few years ago. This is what he did, and yeah.
Yeah, that might be true. He's actually doing some very important stuff. That's I think he was involved in some battery development for making renewable energy. So he's tackling climate problems, which is similar to Ginny, very important as well.
Yeah, cool. So Blackdown, and then what I wanted to ask you before Blackdown. So your physics work, so PhD, what you actually did? Why you needed the visualizations?
My PhD thesis was about ultrasonic inspection of laminated materials. So we sent waves through materials, can be the earth, can be airplane materials, and based on the reflection of those materials, reflection and transmission, you know more or less what's happening inside those materials. So that requires lots of computations and lots of visualization. So in order to do this, you need an IT infrastructure that can do a very large number of matrix multiplications, and also that can visualize the results real time. And in 1996, that was not obvious. Even today, it's still not obvious. But actually, although my background is completely in physics and science, and I really love that part, the bottleneck is often that you need good IT infrastructure and programming languages to work on scientific projects. So that explains the link.
So now I'm curious. So you are basically a scientist with a little bit Java knowledge. And now, how would you prefer Python or R over Java, or you still like Java for your scientific work or scientific hobbies?
I still like Java. I do know that many people use R or Python because it's easy to get started with, but sooner or later you will still run into issues like, for example, multi-threading, concurrency, access to data storages. You need to get data from different data sources over the internet. The connection will drop in the middle. You need to add security. You need to analyze things, and then you can start building those tools that you need yourself, or you can move to Java, which has most of the tools already there. And well, since I now know at least a few bits about Java, for me it's always interesting to start right away in Java. I'm doing some scientific projects now, and they're all in Java. And I think it's sort of an analogy what James Governor and Mark Cavage are saying. If web shops become mature, they turn into Java shops. So what you often see is that if a company wants to create a web presence and they want to sell something online, or so they start with PHP or whatever that gets them started very fast. But then if they are becoming more popular and are running into more problems, they need all these tools that Java provide. So then they turn into Java companies. And I think from a scientific part, it can be more or less the same. Especially now that Java provides very good visualization tools and also very good computation tools. There's a library, ND4J, which is sort of a wrapper around the typical numerical libraries, and it's equally fast as native code. And for the visualization with JavaFX, we have a great tool that allows for fast visualization, real-time analysis, and a direct binding with ever-changing data.
Okay, cool. So there is no need to learn Python. So it's really nice, because I was like, what's the thing about Python and R? Is Java not enough? And I was really about just to do something, to use a nice formatter for Python and I learned the syntax this way. But I'm glad I don't have to. So then Blackdown, and then you started Lodge On, or what was your story? So what you did then? So we just stick with fun projects, or?
Well, with Blackdown we got some attention. And as a consequence, there were some companies asking me for help with Java in general. So that's why, although it wasn't a clear decision for me, I became a Java consultant, doing Java work. And then there was one company that I did consulting for that I liked a lot because they were doing something cool, and that was a telematics company in Belgium. And they were creating the third generation of telematics, which actually means that inside the car you have an infotainment system, and you can download applications to it, and different service providers can write services for different cars, and then you need something in the middle that negotiates that, for example, on this car you can have this service. And so that was 1998, I think, and it was long before the App Store and the Play Store were invented, but it was more or less that concept. So in order to realize this, you needed end-to-end Java, and I always was very interested in combining Java on small devices and Java on big enterprise devices. So for this telematics company, we needed both an enterprise architecture for managing the different services and also the APIs that they could use, and also we needed to be able to run those Java code on telematic systems. And typically, car manufacturers, they don't want to spend too much money on the client stuff. It's like actually with everyone in this industry, there's not much money for making things run on the client. The real value is on the back end. But if you want to have people using it, you need an end-to-end chain. So therefore, with Acuna, the telematics company, we needed Java on the client as well. And with my background in Java porting to Linux, I did some work there with Java on embedded clients. We had our own Java virtual machine, and we were running Java software for managing the whole ecosystem. Actually, we were using the OSGi platform for running different services from different providers in that system.
Okay, I wanted to skip this part with OSGi. So you were one of the OSGi spec leads, right?
I founded the OSGi Vehicle Expert Group. So okay. OSGi was very broad, and we wanted to use something in telematics, and then we started a specific group in OSGi for seeing how we can come up with APIs that are specific to the vehicle industry. For example, we created a position service and how to access the canvas and so. And I think one of the reasons why I was the founder of that Vehicle Expert Group was that I was neutral. So there were BMW and Volkswagen and Ford and many other companies in there that had their own standards. And we created some sort of a Java standard that got a buy-in from those vendors. And that was actually my main reason on why I wanted to join OSGi, because in those days, so it's still before 2000, Java at Sun was still pretty closed, and OSGi was relative open. At least if you had enough VC money from a company to buy your membership and to go to the conferences. So at that moment, Java was more closed than OSGi. Fortunately, with the changes in the JCP, and it's still ongoing, the official Java has become much more open and welcomes much more feedback from the community. So therefore, at this moment, I think there's less need in yet another standardization organization, because Java is more open now.
Oh, this is what I didn't know. I thought you are, behind the OSGi initiative for the enterprise, but for cars or embedded devices, it absolutely makes sense. So always, when we meet, I was like, "Oh, you are behind OSGi, so it's nobody's perfect." But right now, I see your motivation. So I'm also for it. So OSGi on an embedded device is just perfect, because there is somehow defined deployment model. Without that, there is nothing. Yeah.
Yeah, true. There was nothing. Well, actually, there was something, and it came at the same moment as Genie, and OSGi and Genie, and Jest, which was then the Java embedded specification, was actually created by Sun and then donated to OSGi. So OSGi still was built on on software created by Sun, many things have been changed. But the OSGi on the enterprise was started after I was gone. So the company ran out of money, and that was the end of my involvement in OSGi.
Oh, very good. So no more fun. So absolutely. So you did the right thing, and after you were gone, everything went south, right? So trying to have lots of bundles on the server. Okay. It was really funny because around 2002, I was asked by Volkswagen to help them with OSGi. So, okay, you can have it. So I showed them what OSGi is. I said, okay, nice, but this is not about a car. It's like, no, but you asked me about OSGi, you have it here. So, okay, what we can do? So, okay, probably what you would like to have is like a car API, how fast go this car and whatever. So what we created from scratch with a CAN bus connection, our car API. And surprisingly, Volkswagen was very open about that. So there is no NDAs. They even donated a patent to me, which I'm not very proud of, with my only single patent I have, actually. They just wanted to give me a patent. Okay, so why not? And the software run on open source Java called Café. Mm-hmm. And it turned out that it was DaliCore topic behind. So now at Oracle. And we just used that to port it to the hardware running in the car. And I remember DaliCore, wrote on my blog, like, what I wrote is, I don't care about open source. What I would like just have the source code, So I was not about the whole open source politics. As long as I have the source code, I'm happy with it. And DaliCore commented, it's not that easy because of licensing or whatever. So that was my first contact to someone who is actually interested in OSGi, was Volkswagen, and someone who wrote a JVM, which was DaliCore. And this was actually, we didn't met each other, but probably I read your name somewhere. And there was an old OSGi book, the only book from Sun Microsystems. This is the very first OSGi book, and I tried to find it right now, but I didn't find it. And this was my first contact with OSGi back then.
That's interesting. In a number of ways.
And there was Sun Embedded Server was what I used.
Exactly. Yes.
Sun Embedded Server, and there is another commercial German company which used OSGi as well. I forget. The service platform. Exactly. So the Java embedded server was indeed donated, I think, by Sun to OSGi as the base for OSGi. It was Li Gong who was involved there. It's interesting that you mentioned those names. I didn't know that DaliCore worked for Café and Transvirtual. Not Transvirtual, it's Café.org. He was like a student, is a very similar background as you. And he just contributed to the porting Café to somewhere else.
Okay, yeah, that's interesting because when I talked about the telematics company, they actually hired me to help them with Café because they were using Café, but I think there was no RMI, so I think I implemented RMI for Café.
You know what I used with Café? You remember JXDA?
Yes.
Peer-to-peer technology. So we actually implemented this on top of Café. So the idea was that the car-to-car can actually communicate, in the case of there is some congestion on the highway. So and it worked actually.
Yeah, that's funny. I created something similar. I had a code named Poncho, and it was built on Genie. And it was indeed it was more or less the same. So car-to-car communication. Also, Wi-Fi and 4G were non-existent at that moment, and that would also extend your range. If there's one car who has a connection, then the other cars can share his network as well. And so it's Juxta, I think, was very promising, and Genie as well.
Okay, then a short story. So on the way back from Volkswagen, I was in the train, and I watched two scientists talking about rabbits. It's like, what the hell, rabbits? And they talk about rabbits, satellites, and transactions. It's like, what's going on here? It's like, what transactions, satellites, and rabbits? And it's like, well, our job is to count rabbits. So, and you get paid for this? Is we count rabbits in Germany. So okay. It was a little bit boring, and then I just listened to did my work, some hacking, and they switched the conversation to pigs. And the problem with the pigs is the PhD students had to code a pig, and the pig got a small computer, which was like Fitbit, like a fitness tracker. So there was the blood pressure, and whatever they did. And this was very dangerous by wild pigs. And I was with my peer-to-peer idea and cars. So I thought about that. It's like, what you could do, you could create, a pig swarm. So every pig will get an own device, and they will communicate via peer-to-peer. So if you catch one pig, you will get, the data from all the pigs. And they were really excited. So they were supposed to go out in Nuremberg, the German city, and they stayed until Munich just to discuss, the ideas, but they had no funding, no budget. So to discuss the idea how they could implement your peer-to-peer technology for pigs. So and this was I talk about this at the conference, but this is very dangerous to talk about white pigs at conferences back then. And someone listens to this and created a startup on Oktoberfest where from they had communication from mobile phone to mobile phone, peer-to-peer. It was like like distributed Facebook. Mm-hmm. And it worked well. So this is the peer-to-peer story with pigs and social Oktoberfest. Cool. So somehow Oktoberfest, pigs, and cars are somehow related. So I would say from the technological point of view.
Yeah.
So and then so now I got you. And then what is your way to? So you became consultant, and then I probably know you from then, right? So this was or is it later? So what happens then? Still Logion? So you remained consultant?
Yes. So while I was doing telematics work, I also started my own consulting company, Logion, where we do just some Java consulting. So we were small, and we are still small because we provide top expertise in Java. So, for example, companies with performance problems or with specific Java questions, those are the ones that we always targeted. But we didn't have sales and marketing. So it's really just the companies that came to us and asked us something that we did some work for. I always wanted to do more in social media, and we created a framework for social networking and for integrating with social networks. And that was also, well, it's a long time ago. It was 2003 or so. And when we then so apart from doing the consulting, we were doing this work in Java with social media. But when we showed
questions about the consulting. So you are providing low-level services, like if someone has trouble with the JVM itself, or rather than higher level like design and architecture or everything.
Well, both. Actually, it's we just whoever came to us and who was serious and who had a problem that we thought we could fix, we would fix it. Of course, the more that the problem is in our area, for example, web design is something that we don't excel at. So we typically never did that actually. But everything from architecture to fixing problems with performance is something that we got. Actually, in reality, it was less architecture and more problem fixing, because I don't know how you do that, but if, for example, there's a big project in Belgium, mm-hmm. we can't even apply for it because they send a paper which is 50 pages long, and you have to file lots of documents. It takes hours and hours to file those documents, and typically we are not even allowed to participate because you need to be at least 20 people, and for everyone you need a backup, and so it's lots of administration. So we're not allowed to do that, even though we could. Of these 50 pages, there's one page about the technical problem, And if you read that, you say, okay, I can probably do that in 5 days or so. But we're not allowed to do that because we're not a big company. So what happens then is they give this to a big consulting firm, and they have architects and managers and designers and so. So the architecture is typically created before we come in. And occasionally some of those big projects fail. And then they and that's where we come in. Typically when the budget is almost gone. So they only have a small budget, so then they hire a small consulting firm to fix their problem. But the being involved in the initial architecture is something that's very hard for a small consulting company in Belgium.
I don't know whether you are aware, but I'm even smaller than your company. I'm just a singleton. So, so I have to be, really cautious not to have split personality or something like this.
So that's why I wonder how you do architecture as a singleton.
Very similar to yours. So I do not participate in any initial, how it's called, how it's called, the right name, is the documents writing or whatever. I try to avoid this at all because it takes too much time, and I get always involved in so-called task forces. So if something doesn't work. I just get called. I don't know how, I guess, because I'm long enough in the Java space. So this is similar to your stories. I have no marketing, nothing. And then, similar to you, except because I'm a singleton, the budget for me is huge, but for the companies is tiny, because comparing to the overall project budget, it is actually nothing. And if I help them, the next time, they usually will ask me for a short gig about initial architecture. So this is how it usually works. Usually I starting to solving problems, and then I get sometimes the chance, to do something from the beginning, like how it's called, kickstarting or whatever. So this is actually 2 modes. I never stick in a project which works. So what I see is just problems. And therefore, all my talks at conferences, actually not talks, is a little bit, I show what I actually usually do, and how incredibly easy sometimes it is to fix problems just by deleting the stuff what no one understands. And this is sounds funny, but this is actually what I do all the time. This was about, so we are actually very similar, except you have a small company and I'm just a singleton. For similar reasons. I don't like, management and all the overhead. I just like spend full time with tech. This is actually my goal.
Yeah, it sounds very familiar. Now, I do realize that for big companies and governments that they need more administration and structure and blah 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 blah. And so it's tough to find a balance between because everyone can go to them and say, hey, I will do this right for you, and don't worry, it will work from the first time. So how can they believe someone? So therefore, they need all this paperwork to. Not to fix the technical stuff, but at least then there's someone responsible if it doesn't work.
Yes, but I think it changes slightly. So what I recognize the last 3 years, the people just need working solution, and they are no more interested in PowerPoint slides. And this is what, at least in Germany, it changes for a better. What's also happened several times. So I perform some code reviews, and I say, okay, this could be improved a little bit. And then I got hired actually by the company which I criticized, which was remarkable. So I never thought about this. So actually the huge consulting companies hired me to help them to provide inner code. So this also happened several times. Okay, so your social tool, as I know, it was almost a JSR. So you submitted a Java specification request, right? That was years after we started with it. But yeah, indeed, I think it was Werner Kyle who was involved there as well. Yes.
Yeah, for getting a JSR and a Java standard for dealing with social media. Now the problem at that moment, and we had that problem long before as well, was that if we go to big customers and we say, hey, you can log in via Facebook, or if you can have your users say something, and then our software will make sure that gets tweeted, then they looked at us and said, hey, but that's for kids. That's not serious. There's no business in this social media. So when we were talking about this in the early days, potential customers saw social media as just some waste of time. and something not serious. And while they were probably very right about this, today big companies and especially marketing agencies go to the same companies and they say it's very important that you integrate with Facebook and that you position yourself on Instagram and so on. And now there are huge budgets from the big companies for this social media integration. But it's the I think the eternal pain of being a small company, a startup, coming with a new idea and trying to introduce that to established companies. That often doesn't work. If a big name goes to a company and tells exactly the same as a new kid on the block, then the big name has more credibility. So therefore, when we try to standardize the social media access in Java, I think there was not enough interest in social media. Apart from that, it's of course it's not easy to standardize this, and there are many things in Java that I would like to see standardized, but not everything can happen at the same moment.
Mm-hmm. What was the name? So you had a specific name for that. I forgot it. So you name it. So what was the name of the project?
I forgot it as well. I think Werner came up with this.
Doesn't matter. So I just thought this was a remarkable name, and I was not clear what it's actually doing. So, but just using as an OpenID connector, something like this. So you were just too early.
Yes, well, that was my goal in the first stage, sort of an OpenID connector or an abstraction over OAuth and OpenID, just to standardize the authentication. Not the authorization, but the authentication part, where third-party providers like Facebook and Google Plus and Twitter and so could be used.
So it means you are fame on Facebook, WeChat, and WhatsApp, and what else? WhatsApp and
MySpace.
MySpace and Snapchat. I forgot actually.
Snapchat, right? Yes. I think I participate there as much as you do.
Okay. I don't even have an account. So, okay. So after this, you started again with JavaFX. So I remember, so you were really early with JavaFX, and I also remember at conferences, so you said, I cannot sleep, I have to hack something, and the demo was remarkable. It was, I think, JavaFX on the iPad, or something like this in this direction. I think this was Java 1 later, and you didn't sleep the whole night, and just the next day it worked. So this is what I remember. So you couldn't participate in the appreciation event because of hacking or something like this.
Yeah, that's always a tough choice, but it's been the magic of Java 1 forever. Especially in the early days when so many new things were announced, and then it was a matter of so it was announced at the keynote, and then you had a few hours to decide which of the cool announcements am I going to play with. Mm-hmm. And when JavaFX was announced, I still remember how they did it, but that was something that immediately grabbed my attention. I said, well, finally we can do something cool with visualization in Java again. And actually, when I said that I started with Java because of my PhD, I needed calculations and visualizations. Now, back in those days, calculations in Java with an interpreter mode only, there was no hotspot initially, so forget that. So it was extremely slow. Visualization with Swing on my old Sparks station was incredibly slow. So to be honest, and I'm not proud of it, but I couldn't use Java for my PhD thesis because of no maths and no UI. But then with JavaFX, which was leveraging the GPU, I realized that this can be a game changer. So this can make Java popular on the client again, and on many clients, not only on desktop but especially on those mobile and embedded devices that we wanted to run Java on for forever. And that's where I spent my nights on. That was also at the Java conferences where I didn't talk yet. So I went to the conference and I could just see, listen, and hack. And then you don't need a night for sleeping is not an option, as John Cage would say.
Yes, this is also my impression of Java 1 or the effect. So even the last Java 1, so I had so many notes. I wrote so many notes and so many ideas just by being there and drinking coffee with the others. So I'm still not done, just consuming, or the Java 1 effect is still there. Something, just a kind of special conference. And what I do, I just attend talks. I'm not chatting a lot, at the halls. I'm just using the conference as it's supposed to be, to attend the sessions, and really enjoy it. And I learn a lot. So this is not very fashionable to say nowadays, because many attend Java conferences just to talk to other people and not attend the talks at all. So we could do this somewhere else, but conference is a conference, so I really enjoy it. Okay, now I got it, your JavaFX, and then you stick with JavaFX, right?
Yes, well, with JavaFX and with the combination to the backend systems, because it didn't change since with telematics we were combining the embedded devices with the big enterprise systems, and with JavaFX, my impression was this is a nice way of visualizing things, but it can only work if what you visualize makes sense and has a business value. So therefore the connection, so where does the data come from that you have to visualize? In demos, you can easily have all the data on your local laptop, but in reality what you want to visualize are data coming from backend systems. You want to visualize real-time traffic, you want to visualize weather information, or you want to visualize connections with different people. So that means there are lots of data and processing of data that needs to be integrated with the UI. But the processing of the data happens at the cloud environments, and visualizations happens at the client. So my first work with JavaFX, and it's still the most important, is how can you couple this great UI framework with data and data store, and with business processing. So that is why I created the DataFX project long time ago, together with Jonathan Jarrett and William Antonio. And in that project we extended the JavaFX observable to sort of a remote observable. So, and one of the cool things about JavaFX is that you can have an observable object, which is just a Java object, actually an interface observable. And if the value of that observable changes, then immediately a UI component can change as well, because the behavior of the UI control can be bound to the value of the observable. And we took that one step further. Instead, so the observable is typically just a POYO, but you can have the observable running in a cloud. And then if somehow the data in the cloud changes, the UI control on the client changes immediately as well. So that's very reactive, actually, and very responsive.
Exactly. So the JavaFX was actually a reactive framework from the beginning. The whole data binding was actually, if you look at Wikipedia definition of reactive programming and compare it with JavaFX, so JavaFX implemented exactly that.
Yes, but I think it was indeed very early to implement this, but it's still very relevant, because it's not only a reactive framework, but it is Java, and it combines all the strengths of Java. The JavaFX APIs look very similar to the other Java APIs. So it's not that you have to make a choice as a Java developer. You just keep using your Java patterns, and completely natural you will flow to this more reactive way of visualizing data that might change.
Yeah, in enterprise project we use that for input validation, which really nice, because you can say, when input first is not null and the second input not null, then activate button, which is really easy to read, and is really comparing with Swing, you would have to use mediator pattern with lots of if else. In JavaFX was always very clean.
Yes, so yeah, they really spend lots of time on the API. Well, at least for JavaFX too, then, and yeah, it shows.
Mm-hmm. And then after the DataFX, then you stick with JavaFX. And what I also recognize, you were on the server side also from the beginning. So you use Glassfish from the very early days, right?
Yes, really from day one. I don't remember exactly when it was announced at Java 1, 2000 and a bit, I think. Well, before Glassfish, I was using a number of application servers. For example, the Sun 1 application server, but also JBoss and
Java Web Server. You used the Java Web Server, the very first one.
Yes.
Yeah, this was nice with the applet management console.
Yeah, that's I think I went through all of them from the moment that they were announced. My biggest frustration with at least with everything from Sun. So I know JBoss was already more open then, but with everything from Sun, my biggest frustration was something wasn't working as I expected, and I couldn't find out what was happening because I didn't have the source code. And then at Java 1 they said so they were going to announce J2E, whatever it was still called J2E at that moment, and we will make the reference implementation open source and we will start it from scratch. Well, starting from scratch was a bit exaggerated, but it was open source. And that's why, again, the same night, so I probably missed that appreciation event as well then, I downloaded the code and I started looking into it. It was such a relief because still it happened very often that when running applications, even in production, it's not doing what you want, or you get some weird exceptions and then you don't know what to do. But starting with Glassfish, I had the source code. I could look at the flow and see, okay, this exception is probably thrown because this is null and this is passed here and there. So it's so this one must use this value, and so that is the reason why it's not working. It's clearly a bug. So let's try to fix it and create a patch and send it upstream. But it will take a while before that's accepted. But meanwhile, we understand why there's a problem, so we can create a workaround. So Glassfish really made my enterprise development extremely more productive.
So funny because I completely ignored the first Glassfish. It's like I knew the I gave her some courses for Sun Microsystems, and I was forced to use in the Java E courses the SDK reference implementation. It was like Sun internal tool. And where you had like a swing deployment tool, and I had to use it, and this was terrible. So at the end, what I actually used, I used Eclipse and JBoss, not to use NetBeans. I hated NetBeans back then. With the reference implementation, was also terrible. And if they came out in Java 1, it's like, no way, I will never use this stuff. I just stick with JBoss and BA. BA was great back then. It was lean and fast, and the Sun stuff was slow and terrible. And then some client asked me about the Glassfish. I'm saying, okay, if the clients ask me about a Glassfish, I will look at that. And it absolutely changed my perception. It was a complete rewrite, or at least a porting from the old one. And they have already, the, how it's called, flow, like the visualization, what's going on. I think it was called flow something. And there was in the admin console, which was usable, which was really nice. And I had the insight and the command line interface, which was also there. And then what I wrote a blog post, which I didn't like and what I liked, and the engineers pinged me behind the scenes and said, okay, this is actually a good idea. So I knew the engineers then, and then I just like Glassfish, and more projects I use Glassfish. And what I found a genius idea is to couple the reference implementation with commercial support. And this was a completely missed opportunity by Sun Microsystems, I would say. I don't know why. If I mentioned it, the clients usually bought support. But Sun was absolutely not capable of selling this. And this is what made me angry. It's like, what's going on here? It's like you have the unique opportunity to selling services and nothing happens, right?
Well, yeah, I think I made the exact same comment, even going one step further. So selling services around it would be cool, but we were running a number of commercial projects using Glassfish, and we were hosting themselves on EC2, and we had to upgrade the application server every now and then. We had to make sure that everything kept running. So I said, why wouldn't Sun provide Glassfish on a server? And nobody was interested in it. There was a company, a Russian company, I think JLastic, I think they're still around, and they were doing that. But actually, what I was proposing Sun that they should do is what's now called the Oracle Java Cloud, I think, and it's so much better for the customer if he can just rely on, okay, so this is an application server provided by a company. I don't have to worry about it. If there are issues with it, I can call that company, and they will they will make sure that it runs for me. So, but yeah, again, I think those in those days that model wasn't clear yet to everyone, and then companies like JElastic did the hosting of Glassfish and providing support for it. So that's also where the Payara guys jumped in and doing a great job in. An open source product alone is, in my opinion, not enough. You really need to have this commercial support.
But I think it was absolutely clear back then, but I don't know why they didn't. Do you remember the Sun Grid?
Yes.
So the Sun Grid was a nice idea, but the execution was terrible. So you had to zip everything and upload somewhere. And I always wonder why you are not using Java E for that, because then you have just a war with your business logic. You push it to your grid and you are done. So somehow they didn't recognize the power,
Well, yeah, I fully agree, and I never understood why. So maybe it's time to ask someone who was involved back in those days. That was even before Oracle bought Sun. And Sun had a cloud, so the Sun Grid and the Sun Cloud. So they had a cloud, but they didn't. It could have been easy, but it's always easy to look. To look to the past to say they should have done this and this. Yeah. It's probably had very good reason. Hey, when you said about you also had this this Sun app server before Glassfish, did you ever manually edit the Sun CMP mappings.xml file? Because I
had to, because if you wanted to deploy the CMP beans, you had to do this.
Yes, yeah.
But then I use Xdocklet, but I'm not sure for this. I use Xdocklet for Whitefly and BEA. I never used the Sun commercial server commercially, only for workshops, Sun workshops. So I was a freelancer working for Sun, and I would say 3 times a year I delivered some workshops. Usually the EJB, and which comprise a CMP, and architecture planning and design, Genie and RMI and Corba and all the stuff. Never the Java basics. It was a little bit too boring, I would say, for everyone, for me and for the audience. But the more interesting stuff was really fun. So and then okay, so now you are on the JavaFX side. What always interests me, why you are interested in Java E at all? Because you are the pragmatic scientist. You just need visualizations. You could actually run, if you know JVM, right? You could run your own server. You could create your own multi-threaded server at the back end. There will be no big deal. And you stick with Java E. So this is remarkable. So I always wanted to ask you why.
So one of the major goals why I really like Java E is because it's a standard. You want to leverage the same tools that are used by others as well. And if they are developed as a standard, there's much more chances that they will be of a high quality. So what everyone could write a Java server, it's always much better if you follow a standard and if you benefit from the lessons learned by others. And that's something that I also learned with OSGi, which used to be some sort of a standard as well. I mean, there were companies that were heavy experienced in a particular area, and if you put 2 companies that have lots of experience in an area together, and you let them discuss, and you tell them that they should come up with a single approach, then they might have a fight in the beginning, but if they find each other, they will create a standard. And that is what I really like about Java E. So IBM, Sun, Oracle, BA, and all those big companies back in the days, and still going on with Reddit and so and Tommy included now. They have lots of expertise, and they combine it into something that is pretty cool. And nobody on earth can be an expert in everything. So, for example, if I need to do something related to persistence, I can use the Java E, the JPA API for doing this, and I don't have to worry about how it is done, but I know that some very smart people decided on how the API should look like, and some other smart people implemented it, and that allows you to focus on the things that really matter to you. And even though I'm always interested in everything going from the Java code that I write till the execution of at the processor, it's good to trust on some things, and on Java E you can trust.
Yeah. What's funny, what you said right now, this is what we usually do in some project. If someone asks me, what about Java E, should we use it or not? And I explained that to some startups with the effect. I would say I'm coaching right now 3 to 4 startups which do not care about the technology, and they would like to have something which work to move quickly, and they are extremely happy with application servers in Java E, which is really funny because you might think, okay, startups would like to have something more funky, but they are not funky at all. They would just like getting stuff done. They don't care whether it is implemented with Java E or, I don't know, twisted Python or whatever we have, right?
Yeah, but I think it might actually be easier to convince those people for using Java E, because people with some background, for some reason, Java E is still often associated with big and bloated and and complex. But if you're unbiased, and if you just look at the numbers, then it's clear that it is not. And this is an example that I often give, and I think you see something similar. Often people tell me, I have a very simple backend service. It's not going to do a lot, so I'll just write it as a Pollo, and I don't have any dependencies apart from SLF4J and Apache Commons string and Apache Commons here and there, and maybe a few other libraries that are really cool for formatting some text. And that's it. And then if they build a fat jar, it's a few gigabytes. If you would do the same with Java E, with the APIs provided there, your application would be much smaller, and it would only have trusted certified code. I think many people, and that's our great build tools often hide the dependencies. But it's amazing if you look at some projects how that say I can't use Java E because that's too heavy. And if you then look at the dependency chain that they're using instead of Java E, it's amazing.
Yeah. One project was also a startup. They hired me because for Java E consulting, but they didn't use Java E. I didn't know that. So I arrived and fire up the application service. So I think I showed them Tommy and Whitefly, and they asked me why it's so fast. It's like, it's normal. I mean, this is like quite fast. There's no magic. And what turned out, they use some fat jar approach, and they had to rebuild their old stuff over and over again without any reason. So my deployment took 3 seconds, and they're 30. And the result was my war was about 10K and their 30 max. And they claimed there's no lightweight solution. And at the end, they asked me whether they should switch to application servers. Like, if you're happy with that, just go with that. So I don't see the point. But if you're happy, just do whatever you like, right? So there's no. Okay, so this is actually interesting. Now, even more interesting. So you told me that you worked for the telematics company. So you ported the JVM again. So you already ported JVM twice, right? Blackdown and the telematics are kind of port.
Yeah. So we first worked on a cafe at the telematics company, and then it was actually another team because I was due to my license with Sun at that moment, I wasn't allowed to work on clean room implementation. But let's say that I could give advice on some parts. Okay.
So you created some PowerPoints for them. And no PowerPoint. Is there a Linux alternative to PowerPoint?
VI.
VI. Okay, so you created some VI slides, right? And or Emacs even. And now you have a gluon. And the gluon is, I think, your third port, kind of, right? So what it contains is JavaFX ports. And
yes.
My understanding is you are able to run the virtual machine on Android and iOS?
Yeah, so the most important part is so Gluon provides a number of things. So the basic idea is make it easy for Java developers to run their Java client applications on mobile devices, phones and tablets and so. That means that the UI, of course, needs to run on those devices. And therefore we ported JavaFX, which contains lots of native code for doing the hardware accelerated rendering. We ported that to Android and iOS. But that wasn't very hard because the rendering is done with using OpenGL, at least on
so
Mac
wait
and
a
Linux.
second. So you ported the virtual machine to Android and iOS, or what you ported?
Yes, so for iOS, so we ported the JavaFX native code to Android and iOS. On Android, we can use the Dalvik virtual machine, but on iOS, there's no Java allowed. So what we do there is initially we used the RoboVM virtual machine, which was an AOT compiler plus a virtual machine. But that project was stopped. So then we created
was not
gluon VM.
It's commercial right now, right?
RoboVM was acquired by Xamarin, and Xamarin was acquired by Microsoft, and Microsoft decided not to continue the development.
Okay.
Strange enough for a Java company, but anyway, that's what happened. So then we created, indeed, not really a new virtual machine because the gluon VM is heavily based on openJDK. So the class path is completely the same as openJDK. So we use all the java.lang classes and the native code and so. And there's a project in Oracle, OpenJDK Mobile, that does everything for this. So that's something that we could leverage. But then we can't use...
OpenJDK is running on iOS, kind of.
Exactly, yes. So we have it's OpenJDK 9, so we bundle by default with the base module and then the 4 JavaFX modules, and then a few security modules, and then the SQL module, and so Java 9 is running on the Java 9. Exact the same bytecode that you use on the server is also running on iOS.
Now, this is incredible, actually. And how big was the team which ported this?
That's so lots of work was done by Oracle, by a small team at Oracle, and then a few guys at Gluon with some help.
How small was the team at Oracle? You know it? How many persons?
I think three people from Oracle were involved. But if you think about it, the ARM chips are not that much different. So the difference between openJDK for iOS or for Windows, Mac, Linux is not huge. It's basically, it's a bit more complex than that, but in most cases you just need a different tool chain, cross-compiling things with some different flags, and there you go. So it's not extremely impossible. It's just someone has to do it, and that's what someone has to do.
Okay. So this is the gluon VM.
Well, the classes are one, but then you still need to run to execute the classes. So you need a virtual machine, and because that is not allowed to run as a virtual machine on iOS, we also need an AOT compiler. Because what we do is we compile the Java classes ahead of time, and we link them with the virtual machine library, and that is then an iOS native executable that is sent to iOS. So as a consequence, the app that is uploaded to the App Store is exactly the same format, and it has the same structure as any app that's being created with Xcode, for example. It just happened to be running Java instructions, but everything is compiled ahead of time. So we have a virtual machine and a ahead of time compiler, which is then combined with the Java core classes that are coming from OpenJDK, and those three parts is what we call gluon VM.
Is it somehow based on the Java 9 AOT compiler, or is this completely different?
At this moment, what we have a developer preview, and it's at this moment it is so what we ship is not using the JAOTC, but as I hinted a number of times, we're looking into it for a number of reasons. We definitely want to use Graal because it's an amazingly cool project that's being developed in the Oracle Labs now. And it allows for AOT, so we can definitely benefit from it. At this moment, we still require, because Apple requires it, or might require that you compile your code to bitcode, LLVM intermediate format, and that's not yet possible with Graal, but we're very much interested in looking into integrating Graal with Gluon VM.
Okay, so on Android we have Delvik, so you have JVM for Android. So what do you have? And on iOS you have a ahead of time compiler which compiles a binary which is absolutely compatible with the App Store from iOS. So no one recognizes actually Java precompiled code or precompiled code, and then you can run JavaFX on it, right?
Yes. So the JavaFX classes are ported to iOS and Android. So you're using the native JavaFX controls. So in that sense, it's difficult to say are we native or not. We're not using, for example, on iOS, we're not using the Cocoa Touch APIs and the buttons.
But could you?
Yes, we could, but then we lose platform independency. So we use a JavaFX button, but it's and that's what we provide with Gluon as well. We style it specifically for mobile. So we have a material design team that we ship by default with Gluon. So if you create a Java application with Gluon and you run it on Android, it will look like a material design button. On iOS, it will look slightly different because we have different style sheet, but the idea is still the same. But it's not an iOS button; it's a Java button, but it's because it's rendered using OpenGL. It's directly using the hardware acceleration, so it's not as slow as, for example, running in a web page. So it's not a hybrid framework where we use web components to do the visualization. It's really native components. They're rendered on the GPU, so it's hardware accelerated native rendering of the JavaFX controls.
But it's interesting. Are you aware of React Native?
Yes.
So they are using a little bit different approach. So they claim to have 80 and 90 or 80 plus compatibility layer between the platforms. But what they are using, they're using the native controls. And I think this could be also interesting. So if you could, in future, provide an option just to use the native without the portability option, absolutely native controls, and then you could compete with React Native. This could be a really interesting option.
Yes, but and we, to be honest, we considered that, and we sent out a tweet poll not so long ago for polling interest in this. Now, it turns out that for the market that we target, which is mainly the mobile enterprise, the cross-platform branding is more important than the native branding. So people typically want a native an application on iOS, but they don't want it to look too much like an Apple application. If it's a big bank, they want it to look like an application from that bank, and they want to have the same look and feel on Android and on iOS. So the cross brand is to them more important than the fact that it is using the native iOS or Android buttons. And another advantage of the JavaFX approach here is that Apple changes its Cocoa Touch APIs every now and then, and Android does it as well, and it's a disaster, and it's very horrible for mobile app developers. Now, Java has a very strong tradition in backward compatibility, and if you create a Java application with the JavaFX controls, you can be guaranteed that even if Apple and Android and Google upgrade their own APIs and controls, you don't have to change your application because the JavaFX API will still work.
No, I'm absolutely with you, but I am working with some clients which are really interested in the native iOS look and feel, because it is an enterprise company, but they would like, to have the native iOS or Android experience. So I think it could be an interesting option, because if someone will tell you, look, you are not native, say, yeah, we could be. So this is like our compatibility layer, but this is a different branch of the framework, or call it somehow like gluon native or whatever. And you get your controls, but you will stick with iOS, for instance, right? So this could be an interesting. And I think Twitter poll is a little bit dangerous, because lots of Java developers reading your tweets. And our mindset is different, This is completely different to marketing departments of companies.
Yeah, that is very true. Now, to be honest, it's something that I don't promote often. But if you create a Gluon project with NetBeans or IDE or in Eclipse, for example, then automatically there will be a directory src Android and src iOS, where you can still create the specific code for that specific platform. So you can already do it. Actually, it's something that we don't promote too often, because it sometimes gives a confusing message. It's cross-platform, but you still need to create your own UI for iOS and Android. But it is possible, and maybe indeed we might have to brand it a bit more like Gluon iOS native and Gluon Android native.
Yes, because then there are no more arguments again. Because it's okay, you can have cross-platform or not. It's now your decision, and now you can decide whatever you like. Everything has a trade-off.
Yep.
So I didn't knew this part. I thought you can only provide the iOS, the platform independent part. Okay, that is really interesting, because I get questions from some companies, and they ask me, actually all companies asking me this: what is the future of JavaFX? And it is hard to tell. So because the future is obviously different. So how to call it? Marketing is also involved in future. And if everyone believes in web becomes the future, regardless how great JavaFX is. And my biggest concern with JavaFX is the hardware support, the official hardware support from Oracle. So if JavaFX, for instance, is Oracle, we have it already. So Microsoft released ARM-based notebook a few weeks ago. So, and the question is, how fast Oracle is going to support JavaFX on ARM on this notebook, and this is the first danger. But we have you, so I mean, you could achieve that. So you ported Java several times. This is my questions: how often you ported the JVM already? So you could do this, and this is actually achievable. The problem, of course, is everyone looks at Oracle, and Gluon or Logon could be too small, right? So this is a little bit my concern. But I'm a little bit more optimistic after talking with you. So this is actually not mission impossible to porting, a JavaFX from Intel to ARM, whatever Microsoft does. You could actually do this.
Yeah, so there are a couple of things here. So first of all, the political situation. So Oracle is clearly investing in a virtual machine for the cloud. That's where their business interest is in. So that's where they're investing in. They're not creating end consumer applications, and so for them, JavaFX is less relevant. But that doesn't mean that they don't want to support it. And especially as a Java steward, I'm convinced that they will keep supporting the JavaFX community and ecosystem, and in probably in a more formal way as well. So there will definitely be support from Oracle, but that does not mean that everyone has to rely on Oracle for doing things. Now, for JavaFX specific, if you talk about the new hardware. The JavaFX APIs, the implementation are benefiting from standards as well. So as I said, OpenGL is heavily used, and if there are new GPUs, for example, that don't implement or that don't implement the version of OpenGL that JavaFX is currently using, then that version needs to be upgraded. But it's not something like there's not much hardware-specific code in JavaFX. It's really targeting a few numbers of OpenGL extensions, and those have to be supported. And if there are new frameworks, like for example Vulkan, then that can be a separate port as well. But the amount of code required there is pretty small compared with to the whole framework. So it's clearly I'm not going to say that it's extremely trivial, but it's that can't be a showstopper.
Okay.
Now the model
what I would expect that Oracle will do this, officially from the website. So those will the ARM, this is supported. So this is just the message,
Yeah, that they might do that. But what we see that's happening is some companies come to us and they say, well, Oracle is not supporting, for example, JavaFX on the MIPS platform, and then we say, well, no, but we can do that. And we recently have a customer that wanted a MIPS support, and they were willing to pay for it. So we do that. They pay for it, and they are very happy to make it open source. And that's actually something that we see happening more often. There are more companies. We have a very big customer who doesn't want to be named, but they wanted some changes on some of the JavaFX controls. And they are willing to pay for this because it's very important to their business. So they pay, we develop, and we contribute back to JavaFX. And I think with more a sort of an independent organization, rather than relying on Oracle, this will become even better.
Yes.
Because people and companies expect Oracle to do everything for free. And they shout on Twitter and they think Oracle should answer. But if it's more like a company like Gluon, who says, well, we can do this for you, but of course you have to pay for it, and we can make it open source if you want. That model seems to work much better.
Yeah, a lot better. So what should happen then is, on the official JavaFX website from Oracle, company like yours should be listed and say, look, we support officially this platform, but it is very easy, and we have some partners which ported the JavaFX to several platforms already, so we can rely on them. So it's just the message important, because right now, if I get question from a large company, I cannot port JavaFX to, I probably could, but it took 5 years. So after I ported something, the project is over, right? So I have to rely on official messages or from Oracle. And if you look at the page, there's just a few GPUs or whatever listed. And now I can say, sure, you can hire Gluon. And I always said Johan Vos did it already, but as a small company. You could be bought by whoever, not Oracle, but CERN, for instance, another cool, company. And then it just disappears. So there's a risk here. But if there were multiple companies, the risk is shared. And then it's something different.
Exactly, that's the goal. So, and I agree here, the messaging is extremely important. So, and the JavaFX page at Oracle is at this moment not very encouraging for this, but I hope that this will change.
So we have pinged Oracle and fixed that, because the website shouldn't be an issue, right? I mean, this is the main issue is the public information available at Oracle websites.
All right.
Very good. So then we have CloudLink. And the CloudLink looks like connector to the persistence or to the backend, right?
Persistence in particular, but any functionality in general, yes.
Yes, so you are able to use like REST-based communication with the backend, and the backend is implemented with JavaE, right?
It can be implemented with JavaE. So CloudLink is a set of microservices all running on a Payara microinstances, so rather than having mobile devices connecting to backend systems directly, it's better to tunnel that through CloudLink because often connections need to be secure. So you need a key, a public key, a key pair to talk to that backend. You don't want to put those keys on mobile devices, so therefore you put them in CloudLink, and CloudLink will then make the request on behalf of the mobile client to the backend. We support REST. We support some specific connectors like Couchbase connector. And recently we also support serverless integration with serverless functions like the Event project or AWS Lambda. So if in your mobile application you need to to perform some computations, but you don't have your own server. For example, you want to get weather information and you want to combine that with some city information. What you can do then is you create a function in Gluon Cloud Link, and that will call the weather information with the right credentials, the city information, and it will combine the information. So you just have some Java code there, and it will combine the information and send the Java object back to the mobile client, where you can immediately couple it with the UI rendering.
Yeah, cool. So you have complete offering. So from the from backend to frontend.
Yeah, well, that is exactly the goal. So in many companies, unfortunately, mobile development and cloud development are two isolated areas. And the mobile team, they have different goals. They tell the infrastructure team, you have to open every port because we need to access this and this and this. And we're doing that in a strange language, and there might be security holes, but we don't care. And the IT, the enterprise team, they have completely different patterns that they follow. And by offering Java end-to-end, we make it possible for the enterprise developers to at least control the mobile part and the data flow from and to their enterprise critical functionalities.
Okay, cool. So I would say thank you. It was really nice to chat with you. And the final question is, where can people find you or your company? How to find you on the internet, your Gluon and Lodge-On and your services.
Yeah, so they can go to any concert of Sting, or they can go to the website gluonhq.com, and we have contact forms there, I think, or my Twitter handle is at Johan Vos.
Mm-hmm. Johan is a single N, right? And VOS.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Perfect.
Maybe you can provide the link below this.
Yeah. Send me just the links, all the links you have, and I will provide them in the description.
We'll do that.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.